Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Hoops podcast. Today, I'm joined by the head coach of USK Prague, Coach David Gale. Coach Gale, how you doing today, sir?
Good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me on here. Really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So let's jump right into it. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. So basically, what originally inspired you to pursue a career in basketball?
I think it's just kind of what I've known always, to be honest with you. I'm sitting out here in my backyard that looks very different now, but when I grew up here, my parents told me I asked them to put a hoop up when I was like 3 years old. So it's just kind of always been there for me. I've had different paths I thought I would go on. I didn't think coaching would be the way I would go. I thought I would be more on the agent side originally. And so it's just, I think I'm lucky enough to be able to work in a field that I love, and it's fun every day because it's sports, and I think I think I've always kind of known that's what I wanted to do.
So you actually did play in college. So can you talk a little bit about your playing experience at Loyola, Chicago?
Yeah, for sure. I played, I played in California. I was, all state and, McDonald's All-American nominee and, all that. And I went to Brewster Academy actually for a year. So Brewster is kind of, since I've been there, it's become a hotbed for producing NBA talent for sure. So we like to say that we were part of starting that whole process. But playing in college, it becomes a job at that point. Really, it's fun and it's great, and I'm still close with a lot of guys I played with. But it really goes from being casual and just something you're doing, like, to kind of get to the next step, and then you get there, and it's really it's all encompassing, man. It's like it's morning, it's night, it's study hall, it's you kind of understand the levels to it when you each level you step up. So I love my time in Chicago. I apologize if you can hear these planes behind me, but I love my time in Chicago. Chicago is amazing. The school is really since we were there back in 03 to 07, and they kind of really become consistently a very solid program, really just every single year. So I love watching them now. I keep in contact a little bit with some of the guys there still, and it's a long story program. Chicago was a great place to go to school, and we kind of knew the whole time that you saw where the school was going and the money they were putting into the program and the development of the campus, that down the road it was really going to be a powerhouse. It was kind of a sleeping giant a little bit when we were there. So it's great to see what it's become on a consistent basis.
So you mentioned you went to a prep school. I also went to a prep school, not AAA or anything like that, like Brewster. I was a Class A guy. I went to Salisbury.
Okay.
But so around that time when young men go to prep school, it's usually like that developmental phase in your life. How do you feel like Brewster Academy kind of tailored to your development as a person as well as a basketball player?
It was tough. It was tough. It's we call it in sports you call it prep school, but really it's boarding school. So you're there are a lot of rules. I grew up in California in sunny, Southern California, and had a car when I was 16 and had a lot of freedom. And then you get there and it's lights out by 10 o'clock and
Yeah.
no cell phones and no TVs in your bedrooms. And,
Really?
oh yeah, we were. It was no cell phones. I got my cell phones confiscated a couple times while I was there.
Wow.
We I would say it made me a little more mischievous. That's for sure. And if you talk to Jason Smith, he would tell you we got away with some stuff while we were there for sure. But it was basketball wise, it was really tough for sure. In the best way possible. You're playing all these high level teams, New Hampton and Bridgeton and Curtis Stinson, who went on to be like the D League MVP. And there were a lot of guys. I can't think of it. Alex Johnson, who went to Arkansas and then played for the Grizzlies, and Will Blaylock, and Gary Irvin at Arkansas as well. I mean, it was tough. It was really good basketball, and first time away from home, first time in the snow, in different kind of climates, and it was it was good. I would say to get it out of my system that year one being away before I went to school. But I still talk to Jason Smith all the time, and very proud of that team as well. I mean, look, you can say if you want your team to be good, just hire me, and 2 years later it's gonna be really good. So it's Brewster's been really doing a great job. I mean, Jason's still there, so um, I would say it shaped my discipline for sure. A lot of discipline went into being there, and um, kind of just let me see what the rest of the country, was doing on a game to game basis, not just traveling around AAU and stuff like that, but when you had to play in a league with guys from
Yeah.
different parts of the country. And it was, I look back on it, it was tough at the time, but I really appreciate it now.
Yeah, 100%. Aside from just being like disciplined, I really feel like it taught me to like work extra hard, because like you're playing in a league with everyone's like a college player at the end of the day. So it's like if you don't work out, if you don't put the work in or put the time in, you're gonna get like left behind. And then it's not really like private, you don't really like see that as much when you're like playing in your small leagues in like your town, like wherever you're from, because it's like, oh yeah, I can just go out there and just like kind of like BS it or like nonchalant and like play good. But like over there, if you like in like the New England boarding school world, like if you like go out there and BS it, you get like punched in the face like in the first 5 minutes of the game, and it's like you're sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? At the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I had a great experience leading up to that playing AAU. I played
Mhm.
for Pump and Run, which at the time was a big AAU program. So we had
Right.
guys from all over the country, and I got my butt kicked a little bit. I
Yeah.
always say like um, Salim Stoudemire and TJ Ford. Those guys, when I had to guard them a couple of times, I did. They were the fastest guys I ever played against. So um, those guys kind of prepare me, and then playing with guys like Nick Kaner Medley, who played at Maryland, and David Paget, who played at Kansas, and Brad Buckman at Texas, and C.J. Watson. Like I was going against C.J.
CJ
Watson AAU stuff,
Watson.
and we had a loaded team. So um, I, I did my fair share of trash talking, and tried to kind of back myself up with my I had a lot of comparisons at that time to trying to be like John Stockton and being tough like that, and so or Doug Gottlieb, who's at Green Bay now, like so uh I came in there with a lot of confidence and a lot of trash talking to my game as well. So
CJ Watson, man, Pacers legend. I used to love that guy in 2K. I remember.
CJ was his nickname was Quiet Storm. He was tough, man. He was really tough to play against every day, and being his teammate, man, he just got these long arms and steals, and he did things, and you didn't really see it coming, and then like Quiet Storm, like CJ was good, man. Really good dude too. Really good guy.
He used to have some big moments coming off the bench for George Hill in those Pacers Heat rivalries back in like 2013, 2014. I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I was with Toronto at that time, so we had to play against those guys. They
Um,
were they were fouling you on every single possession, and can't call every foul.
that was like young DeMar and Kyle Lowry, right? Like I think Grievous Vasquez was there around that time as well.
Yeah, we had Gravis, we had Patrick Patterson, we had Jonas, we had
Amir Johnson.
yeah, AJ, yeah, T Ross,
Oh,
we
Terrence
had
Ross.
yeah, we had a good young team, and then we had some veterans with Chuck Hayes and
Mhm.
John Salmons, and
James
Nando
Johnson.
DeColo was there very briefly. JJ was there. Yeah, yeah, it was a tough team. We had 5 point guards. I mean, we had a very good team. It was just young. I think you said like learning how to win.
Exactly. I remember that. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I remember that 2014 first round against the Brooklyn Nets. I went to like
Yeah,
game 3 and game 6 in Brooklyn, because we had Nets season passes like that year. So my dad used to take me to all those games. I remember like that was when like We the North was really like starting to be seen, and they had like
yeah,
banners and all the Raptors fans were going crazy. I'll
yeah,
never
yeah.
forget when Terrence Ross, he jumped out of bounds, like stole the ball from Paul Pierce, like threw it off of him to get that like last possession of game 7.
Yeah. It was that was a fun team to be a part of. I mean, that was talk about like learning experiences and like molding your identity as a coach and just like things you'll never forget. I mean, Game 7 of that series was something I'll never forget, without a doubt. You know, Paul Pierce and KG even said it was the loudest atmosphere they've ever played in. So that was a fun team, man. That was a really fun time, without a doubt.
So your first professional opportunity came as a video coordinator intern with the LA Clippers. So what were those early years like? You talk a little bit about that. Like what did you learn about like the NBA system, film work, and like team dynamics at the end of the day?
Yeah. You know, like I said at the start, I wasn't sure I wanted to go into coaching. So at that point, you know, Neil O'Shea had given me an opportunity there. He was the assistant GM at that point. Elgin Baylor was still there. You know, I grew up in LA, so getting to see a team from the inside was very cool. Clippers, I grew up a Lakers fan, but got a chance to go to a whole lot more Clippers games growing up. So I would say the thing I learned the most was just like the amount of time and the amount of effort and the work ethic it took to grow in that industry. I would say, like, you know, every day it was the video room. At that point, we had 4 guys in the video room, and we were cutting up film constantly. And so, in order to get onto the court, you had to really like cut your teeth in the video room. At that point, it was a lot of people that was their path. You know, like Eric Spoelstra, Lawrence Frank, Mike Brown. You know, like there were a lot of guys, Frank Vogel, coming out of the video room at that point. So it was really just kind of keep your head down, do whatever the coaches need of you, cut film, be available 24/7, basically. And really, like, the more you did it, the more you could see it could just be a work, cut film, and like do it like that. Or you could kind of start to watch the games and understand. And you saw why certain coaches were coming out of the video room, because you're constantly watching film and you're watching games. And so you're trying to learn, well, shoot, I'm watching Coach Dunleavy coach against, you know, Phil Jackson, and why are they running plays at certain times? Why are they putting guys in certain situations? So you could do it different ways, like I said, and you know, I kind of was able to sit back and talk to different coaches and pick their brains within the Clippers organization, and kind of try and understand why certain things were happening at certain times, rather than just like, you know, learn how to cut the film and use the video editing software. So it was really just the work ethic, I would say, and being able to be around those guys and their brains, you know, get around some very, very knowledgeable coaches that have been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, we actually do see that a lot, like video coordinators now becoming head coaches in the NBA. Like I remember in Eric Spoelstra, like you said before, in 2020 when they went on that big run to the NBA Finals, we saw like the Heat play like a lot of zone, and I know like the NBA is more of like a man-to-man league, especially up to that point. But then we saw like the Heat throw like different defensive schemes at different parts of the game during the NBA bubble, and it was like they were like kind of the only team that were playing zone throughout that whole time, and it was like, why are they playing zone? Like, yeah, they're like a small ball lineup, but like why aren't they just matching up? But it's kind of like a matchup type of zone as well, where everyone's like in the passing lane. That's how they beat the Bucks in that series. So
Yeah.
I agree with you on that note.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, you can look and see, like, it's really just like getting the opportunity to learn how teams are functioning and why teams are doing certain things. And then, yeah, you can, you know, take different things and store it away, like I've done over the years. I've got hard drives with, like, I've got an edit of that zone that the Heat ran. I've got, you know, things that, you know, getting forward to Europe, like that Coach Jasikevičius did when he was in Lithuania with Zalgiris years ago. And so you're just constantly storing things. I mean, this year I ran some stuff that Stan Van Gundy did when he was in Orlando in the NBA Finals
Wow.
with Dwight Howard and Hito, or Rashard Lewis and Dwight. And, like, you know, no idea is new. We're all stealing stuff from each other. So, I mean, that's kind of when the video room, you just like, your job is to watch games. So it's up to you what to make of it, really.
Exactly. Wow. Well, what was the philosophy with Stan Van Gundy and Dwight Howard in Orlando in the finals? I was a little too
He,
young at that point.
yeah. He ran a second called L, right? And you don't really see it much anymore because there's so much switching. but it's like a step up and a side pick and roll.
Okay.
So it looks like an L, right? And so he would mix up which spot Dwight was in and which spot Rashard was in or which spot Hito was in, and Hito was popping and Dwight was rolling, but the guard could come off either way, and so it was tricky because if Rashard's setting the step up and Dwight's setting the side pick and roll, and then one's popping that way and one's rolling that way, and so it's your coverage is kind of it's tricky. How are we going to guard it? Which way are we sending him? Do we want to send him off the roller? Do we want to send him off the popper? And so they had a lot of they had a lot of success with it because you had Rashard Lewis and Hito who could both shoot the ball, and Jameer Nelson who could get downhill, and Dwight was such a force rolling to the rim. So if you've got a popping big and a rolling big, you can kind of do some things like that. And how do you get into it? And so, like I said, just taking some old ideas and trying to make them new again was fun this year.
Didn't the Minnesota Timberwolves run that with Cat and Gobert, kind of with Ant?
Yeah. There you can do it out of different formations. Maybe it's horns, maybe it's one popping, one rolling. Maybe it's essentially pistol.
Yeah.
Really. So like it's just what do you call it? How do you get into it? How do you disguise it a little bit?
Well, that's crazy that they all use like kind of the same philosophies in like different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Do you flare the guy? Do you just pop him?
Yep.
Do you ghost it?
Exactly.
It's all the same stuff, man. It's really all the same stuff.
So I know we talked a little bit about it before, like briefly, your time in Toronto, but
Mm-hmm.
after your video intern role, you transitioned to the Toronto Raptors, where you held roles in as a video coordinator and player development for over 5 years. What do you think like the most valuable part of that experience was in Toronto?
Man, that's hard to say. I would say just being on the court with some guys that were really young and up and coming, and the trust that I got from Coach Casey at a young age to be able to do things like that. So there were certain instances where Coach Casey, summertime after the first year of the season ended, it was the lockout year, and so it was a short year, and um, he had the rookie stayed like a month after the season. And so they would come in the morning and we'd all be there together. And then they come back at night and get shots up. And it was just me and those guys in the gym at nighttime. So for a whole month, it was me and T Ross and Jonas. And at that point, Quincy AC. And then later into the summer times, we had a lot of LA guys. You mentioned Amir Johnson and DeMar, and Terrence lived in LA in the summers, and Jonas would come out there. And we had Landry Fields later in the time, and Coach Casey really gave me the freedom to kind of certain summers be a cog in the wheel of working with those guys. Certain summers being the only guy in LA getting to do that stuff. So I would say really the trust that I got from Coach Casey. It's kind of an obvious thing, but like the more belief and the more positive reinforcement you get from the people you're working for, the more it pushes you to do better and to go further and so and really believe in yourself. And so that to me was probably the biggest thing if I had to choose one thing. Outside of that, I think Coach Casey's consistency was just unbelievable. He's the same person every single day. So the consistency you saw in him, it showed you how that can really get you to the highest levels. Just coming in and being a worker and not getting too high, not getting too low, and being the same person every single day.
So on the player development side of things, what was your player development philosophy while you were developing talent?
I took a lot from different guys. So I took a lot from Eric Hughes, who's now one of the heads of player development with the Mavericks. Billy Bano, who runs Adidas Eurocamp and has been with a million different teams. He was with Indiana as well as an assistant. These guys really taught Jesse Mermis, who's the lead assistant with the Orlando Magic now, Nick Nurse. All these guys. Like I was lucky enough, John Lucas, who's a legend in the player development world. I was lucky enough to work underneath all these guys. And so I would say the biggest thing with player development is always be available. You can say this and this and this on the court, like different techniques and whatever. The biggest thing with player development is always be available and be on. If you can earn their trust, you can do it. It's the hardest thing to do and the most important thing to do. So I would say, look, my philosophy on the court is really start at the start. I think everybody is different, and everybody's got a different base and a different starting point. So like you can't have this wide ranging. We're going to do this with everybody. I think everyone's different, and so you got to approach it that they're individuals, and look how their bodies are, and look how their functionality is, what their body movement is like, how they're built, what they're good at, where they need to work on. I think working on what they're good at already is really, really important. And so I think you also have to approach in-season and off-season player development completely differently. In-season is really more about it's another step of the practice. Like, how are you going to fit in the offense? How are you going to be a part of this team? What's your role? And how can we build your role within the season? And then continue to get you better at little things. And then in the off-season, it's really working on, like I said, what they're already good at. But now you can start to hit their deficiencies and what they can get better at, and trying to add something every single offseason to help them grow as a player, and grow in their role on the team, and hopefully take a step, to be that player that the club drafted them to be, or signed them to be. If you're looking in Europe, like how can they keep growing their careers?
So I know like he was there for like a brief stint. I believe it was like 2012 or 2013. But Rudy Gay, I want to bring up, is actually one of like the most forgotten wings of the 2010s era. So what was it like
Yeah.
having Rudy on the Raptors for that little brief stint there?
Well, it's funny because a lot of those guys, I came up around the same time as them. So you have to separate yourself in a sense, but like you also have to find that way you can find a connection with these
Yeah.
guys. So like a lot of those guys, like Rudy and I, like we never played against each other in AU, but we had the same. We were like right around the same age, so we could bond a lot over stuff like that. I mean, Rudy was really good. Rudy was super, super talented, man. And he was very professional on the court. So I think it was good to kind of like, you can pick their brain about how they got to certain points in their career, but then also take, you're kind of growing together at the same time in a sense. Like I was 27 when I went to Toronto,
Right.
so those 27 until 33 were my years in Toronto. So it's like formative years. And so I'm growing while the players are growing, but you're also kind of helping them reach their goals and their careers. And so Rudy was awesome, man. Rudy was really cool. I liked him a lot. Like I said, we talked a lot about our playing days and player development stuff. And, um, uh, we were, I spent a lot of time with Rudy when I was there. And I mean, I can't dive into all the stories that we shared, because some of them I don't want to share, but or wouldn't be fitting for this audience necessarily. So like Rudy was awesome though, man. He was super, super professional, always showed up ready to work. Um, and his time there was it was like a step in helping the organization, you know, move to their next phase. The trade that Rudy was involved in really catapulted the Raptors to the next phase of moving towards the championship.
He was so cold, coach. Oh my God. I I remember I used to like on my way to school, like my mom would give me my dad's iPad and I watch like NBA game time and all that stuff. You see this guy doing like the craziest dunks. He gets cut off one way. I remember LeBron cut him off one time. He
Yeah,
countered with the behind the back, went down the lane, like dunked on Chris Bosh and all that stuff. I was like, man, this guy is cold. It was insane.
Rudy was super, super talented, man. He and Kyle and DeMar were all very, very close too. And I mean, Rudy, one of the first games he was with, we beat the Clippers. That was like one of the Lob City teams that we were not, everyone picked us to lose the game, and we came in, we won that. So it was like really, it was a catapult to the next steps for the franchise for sure. But he was extremely talented, man, and big, really big,
Mhm.
like 6'8". I mean, big dude.
So you were an assistant coach for Raptors 905 and Delaware as well. So how
Mhm.
different is the G League atmosphere in terms of like teaching and adjusting game plans like on the fly?
I think it's different each organization. I mean, I was in two different organizations in the G League. I would say in Toronto, it was great because it's like very, very like super tight knit with the big club. We had guys coming up and coming down all the time for practice. I think at that point we were like a model organization of how you should do it. How you should build your player development within the G League. We had guys like I said, we were only 25, 30 minutes away from Toronto. So we had Fred VanVleet and Pascal and Bruno and DeLon Wright, Norman Powell, Jakob Poeltl coming up and coming down every single day, coming to practice with us. So that was really cool. I think on the fly, one of the biggest things that we took away from that was how important the 12th guy is in the G League. At that point it was the D League. You don't know who's going to be with you on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So it's really important. We had a guy named John Jordan who won the D League dunk contest, actually. 5'8", little, tiny, strong, funny. Coach Stackhouse used to tell him he had movie muscles, that he wasn't really strong. He just had the muscles that look good on TV. But the development with him, or a guy named Negus Webster Chan, who's a local Toronto guy, or Good Luck Okanobo. These guys are like names that people kind of forget. But they were G League guys that like helped us win games, man. And like we won the D League championship. We had second best record of all time in the D League at 39-11. And we had one of the best teams of all time too. I mean, our roster was ridiculous. But, you expect Fred VanVleet to be there, DeLon Wright. Okay, they're not there that day because the Raptors went on a road trip and Kyle's injured, so they need both of them. And then, so you've got Brady Heslop. Brady rolled his ankle, so now Brady can't play. And so to stay competitive in the D League, you have to make sure you're developing the 11th and 12th guys because they might be your starters one game. And so if your whole model is, okay, player development for the NBA guys and the two-way guys, but we want to develop through winning, you've got to be developing the D League guys as well. And those guys have to help you win games to stay competitive. So you are a winning atmosphere when guys like Fred come down. So I thought that was one of the things I took away the most from it and has really helped me going into Europe and even in college. And on top of that, the game plan stuff, you can do some fun stuff. I mean, you can try some different things in the D League. Like you can, a lot of times you're doing the same thing as the big club, but I'll say like in Toronto, like they gave Coach Stackhouse a lot of leeway to kind of do his own thing. And so it was a lot of fun. We got to play around and Coach Stack, I mean, Jesse was there the first year and that was a growth year without a doubt for us as a franchise. And we grew. We had the most, at that point, we had the most wins of any D League expansion team ever. I think we won 27 games as an expansion program. And then the next year, Coach Stackhouse kind of like let me run with the offense. And he and I were in the offense, all in the office. I remember sitting on the phone with my wife at the time, sitting there at sushi one night, and I'm on the phone, and me and Stack are talking for an hour and a half, just drawing up plays over the phone, and so it was a really growth year for me. And I got to, like, again, going back to like when someone puts their trust in you and their faith in you and gives you a lot of growth potential, you can run with it. And it's really empowering. And so for me, that was what the D League was. I mean, it was the ability and the opportunity to really grow as a coach. It was awesome, man. I had an amazing time doing it.
So in 2018, it was a big year for you, as well as on Loyola Chicago as well when they went to the Final Four.
Yeah.
You actually took a different leap and became a head coach at Porsche BBA in Germany. Later coached for BC Nevzis. Is that pronounced it right?
It's so with that triangle upside down, you would be like a Z. So it's Nevzis.
Nevzis. There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
in Lithuania, and now for USK Prague in the Czech Republic. So basically, what I'm asking is, what inspired you to take your coaching career overseas?
Well, it's not always by choice, I'll say some things happened along the way when I was in Delaware and Philadelphia that kind of forced me to look and see what the next step might be. And so when this opportunity presented itself, it was really like, let me do something different. I can kind of be this guy that bounces, from G League team to G League team or tries to continue to hang on in the NBA and claw, and really like this opportunity presented itself in Germany, and I had the conversation with my family, and it was, let me do something different. Let me make my resume look a little different. Let me have a different experience and go see the world. And Germany is a great place for Americans. Like, honestly, it's a very easy transition. Um, the language is a little different, of course, but like the transition is much easier than certain other countries. And so that was really the thought process at that point. And I got to be an assistant coach for a Champions League team. So I was with two different clubs. I was with one club at two different levels at the same time. So I was an assistant coach with the Champions League team and the Bundesliga team.
Mhm.
And I was a head coach of the under-19 team. And part of that step of taking that job was I knew we had an NBA prospect on the roster. So it was like diversify my resume, but also it allows me to keep in contact with all my contacts in the U.S. because I've got this kid that 2 years from now is going to be in the NBA draft. So that was kind of the thought process, and then it just kind of grew from there. Like we did really, really well in Germany, and COVID hit, and some opportunities I thought would be there in the NBA disappeared because of COVID and the bubble, and team scaling back. And I went from winning the German championship and winning coach of the year to like a bunch of opportunities going away because of COVID. And so the opportunity presented itself in Lithuania, and to be a head coach in a first league in a very, very well respected league. And you go back to my time with Toronto, and Jonas Valanciunas kind of helped me get that job in Lithuania. And so again, it's like the relationships you form, and so that's kind of how that path happened to go to Germany and go to Europe, and then continue the path of growing in Europe. So it was, I would say, it wasn't the first option or what I had in mind, and then it came up, and it was like, man, let's do this and see what comes from it. And it was, again, just an amazing growth opportunity for me, getting to be a head coach and getting to coach like an NBA prospect who's now Ariel Hakporti, who's now playing for the Knicks. And it's really cool to see him go through his whole steps since we left each other, and so seeing him get drafted was amazing, actually.
So when you first stepped into your role as head coach for USK Prague, what were your goals for your program? And basically, how did you build a culture and basically identify yourself as the head coach?
So USK Prague, so essentially I'll say like Nevezis in Lithuania. It was tough. COVID was happening, so I decided to come back to the States, and I went 3 years and I was in the SEC for 3 years at Georgia and Vanderbilt. And so the choice to go back overseas was like, I thought I had learned a lot from being with those guys again. And so to go over there, I took a lot of what I learned from the college atmospheres and what it takes to build a program in college and the culture. Um, and so I thought the most important things were consistency and accountability, and getting guys that were hungry. And so, Europe is different. There's different levels to each league. And so, like, you kind of knew you're recruiting guys in the Czech Republic that are looking at that league kind of like the G League. Okay, I don't really want to be in this league. I want to use this to get to the next step. So I was trying to recruit hungry guys that wanted to be at a higher level, and had something to prove. And so we came in with, building the culture of we're going to outwork everybody, and we're going to be hungrier than everybody else. And then from the X's and O's standpoint, I just, it was ball movement and pace and playing fast and young athletic dudes, and positional length and switchability. But you want to build a culture of like, we're going to have fun, but fun comes after the discipline, right? The discipline comes first, and then fun comes second. So it's challenging without a doubt when you're in organizations maybe that aren't the Euro League or Euro Cup or Champions League, to be able to find that consistency. But that was my whole goal: consistency, accountability, and then the discipline first, and then we'll have some fun after we develop our discipline.
So you mentioned your time in the SEC right there with Georgia and Vanderbilt.
Hmm.
So basically, how did you approach player development and evaluation during your time in the college setting?
I mean, I can't say like, the player to, that's really the head coach's call for the most part of how you're going to approach that stuff. But a lot of those young guys, I mean, I like to use examples of players I've worked with, like we're talking about, like DeMar and Kyle and Jonas and
Hmm.
Terrence Ross, and talking to guys, the young guys, about they shortcut things, and I always say like, oh, you're not running all the way to the corner. Like Terrence Ross made $30 million just of literally sprinting to the corner. So
Right.
like the details matter. You can be a star in your role, and your role will grow. Everyone says things like that, but like these are the messages for young guys in college. Like you can't worry about what's next. You have to be in the moment, and you have to get better every single day. And again, these, like I said, these are things everybody says, but this is what matters in college. Like, these guys are young and they see the money being made at the next level, and so everyone's hungry to skip steps. Maybe people want to skip steps, and you can't skip steps. And so that's kind of how Coach Crean and Coach Stackhouse approached it. Like, you got to do this every single day. You got to outwork everybody every single day, and that's how we're going to get better. We're going to get better by being better in practice. We're going to be better as a team, and so like to get to that next level, you got to bring it every single day, and so that, like, I think every place I've been has been that like fighter's mentality. That, like, I was at Georgia, whether it's Georgia or Vanderbilt or wherever it is, like, so everyone has like, I guess, haters, for a um, better lack of a better term, and so like you got to prove these people wrong, and so that's kind of how I've always approached it, because I'm a 6 foot white guy from the Valley in LA, and so everyone's talked that, you can talk about anybody, and so you got to prove it every single day to get to where you want to get to. You got to have that fighter's mentality for sure.
So at Vanderbilt, you were the director of scouting and recruiting. What made you like go out there to, like, let's say like one of these showcases, it could be like hoop group or anything like that, and say like, I want that guy on my roster.
Well, I will say this: like, one, the titles, the titles are deceiving. Let's put it that way. Uh, like, I would say with Coach Stackhouse, I was more helping on the offensive side. I was kind of his offensive guy, and so
Mhm.
director of scouting was definitely more the side of it, like being in charge of pretty much every scout, offensive for the most part, but offense and defense. We had some grading systems, and we had, you know, um, coverages we looked at, how were we picked apart. So I really helped a lot on the scouting, the pregame and postgame stuff. But I would say from the recruiting side of it, it's really like, what is the coach looking for? Like, how are we building our program? What kind of players do we want to go after? Um, and so then you can kind of key in. You have meetings before you go out to these recruiting events. Here's the players on our radar. Maybe somebody pops out to you that you weren't looking at before you got there, but you've got a list of guys before you go there, that kind of fit the system you want to play. So, for example, at Vanderbilt, you've got to get guys on it. The academic side of it is real. So
Yeah.
you can't go recruit just anybody. You maybe you're recruiting a different profile of player than, say, Kentucky is going after,
Right.
or an Arkansas or something like that. So, the academics, the family, the how are they as an individual, as a person off the court, and then you're looking at how do they fit on the court into the system that Coach Stackhouse wants to run, or the system that Coach Crean wants to run.
Right.
So it's really, you're taking the lead from the head coach first, and then hopefully, yeah, you can spot a diamond in the rough that nobody else sees, and you can bring that guy in. And I mean, Coach Stackhouse was great for that. Scottie Pippen was a 2-star recruit. Jordan Wright, who then went to LSU, was way under the radar and under recruited. And so, I thought Coach was really good at finding guys like that went under the radar, and turned them into high level SEC players or NBA players, and Scotty and Aaron Neesmith and Liam Robbins and those guys examples.
Funny thing you mentioned Kentucky just now. Like, what was it like playing against Kentucky? I don't know if it was in Rupp Arena that year or just in general, like that atmosphere with Big Blue Nation?
Oh, it was awesome. It was great. All those atmospheres in the SEC. I think that's one thing that like going to Europe and like if you're not in the you see everyone sees Greece and Olympiacos and Panathinaikos and things
The
like that.
smoke, the
That stuff.
fire.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy. Now Germany is loud, but it's different. It's drums and it's like it's
Mhm.
not like the hooligans per se. So being back in the U.S. and the SEC was amazing. I mean, some of the loudest atmospheres I've been around for sure. Big Blue Nation was great. We beat them on senior night
Mhm.
at Rupp Arena, so that was pretty cool. Getting to go into Auburn. Auburn, I think, is maybe the toughest place in my
I've
opinion to
heard
play
that
in the
before.
SEC.
Yeah.
Auburn's crazy. The whole bottom section along the sideline is all students, and they get there, and you walk out in the pregame, and they're already there 3 hours before the game, and so that stuff's wild. And they're in costumes, and they know stuff about you that and so that stuff's fun. And then I mean, Missouri's really loud in that arena, and it just goes up and up and up, and so they're like on top of you.
Mhm.
I mean, all those places. Georgia's good. Um, I'm trying to think where else. Kentucky, Alabama was really loud. I mean, we were there the year Brandon Miller was there, and that
Wow.
was a crazy atmosphere. Um, LSU, those guys get rowdy when they're good. The SEC is an unbelievable place to play, and so I would say like just those atmospheres, they make you they give you goosebumps when you're in there. You know what I mean? Like it's an amazing place, and it's the closest thing you get to the NBA in college basketball, without a doubt.
So across all these roles that you had, NBA, G League, International, and the NCAA, how would you define your coaching philosophy today?
I think are we talking like X's and O's on court or like culture building or I think they're different a little bit to answer that question.
Let's go into like you can do X's and O's first and then culture building. Let's say both
Sure.
aspects.
Sure. I mean, I think from the X's and O's standpoint, we like to get up and down the court like most people. You
Mhm.
know, like to play fast and throw the ball ahead and share the basketball. I think like you can go back to Coach Casey and Mike Dunleavy and those guys um, and then really Jerry Stackhouse, like I've said a couple times, and Tom Crean. Um, the offensive development and Nick Nurse. I mean, I can't leave out Nick Nurse. I was when I was with the Raptors doing all his helping him with his scouting reports and his video and getting to sit in the rooms with him until midnight just talking hoops. So I would say like trying to play fast, throw the ball ahead, a lot of ball movement and body movement. Always really big believer in weak side body movement. Um, keeping both sides of the floor occupied. And the modern stuff like being in Europe, like developing your cutting game. A lot of different cuts. And, I think I say it like that. I think it's dictated like rules per se or reads. Like everyone likes to call them triggers now. Like different triggers, but like tons of movement, tons of body movement and ball movement, and different cuts and keeping the defense occupied to free up either driving kicks or getting the paint to finish. And defensively, I would say the Coach Casey is really consistency was his biggest thing, man. Just every single day, consistency. And then going to Europe and being with John Patrick, the thing I took from him was finding a way to always be aggressive, right? Find something you can be aggressive on the defensive side. So he's a big run and jump guy, um, or forcing a direction, or being in the passing lanes, or having active hands. So
Mhm.
I would say my philosophy defensively has grown to being really super disruptive on the defensive side of the ball. So it's whether it's pressing, full court run and jump, or it's Spanish style next defense in the middle of the court, or people call it peel switch. I just call it like X strong side X. We're gonna like this year. We were all over the place, like just being super super disruptive defensively. So I think your offense leading to your defense is huge, and using your length, and so that's what I would say. I mean, offensively sharing the ball and defensively being super super disruptive, um, and then culture wise, man, just getting good people. Like you have to have good people because you're spending the majority of your time with the people on your team and in your coaching staff and the people you're traveling with and being around in practice and doing your player development and sitting at meals with and you're around these people all the time. And so being around good people, I would say, is the most important thing, without a doubt. And so finding guys that are hungry, finding guys that want to fight and want to grow and want to work and just are not assholes, for, to put it bluntly. Like, you just don't want people that don't want to be there. So I know I said they don't want to be there, like they want to get to the next level. That's different. That's totally different. So just good people, man, good culture people. And I think the best way to define a culture is like, it's the people that you're around every day, right? Are they coming in and working? Like, I heard someone say it like, OKC has done an amazing job of building a culture, and their culture is just like, who do they bring in? They fit this piece and they find this guy and they find this guy. And it's like, at the end of the day, they just got good, hardworking guys, and that's their culture. They didn't just come in and say, hey, we're going to make this our culture. Like, they slowly pieced it together. And so a culture is just what you do every day and the words you use and the vocabulary and terminology and how you function on a daily basis. That's your culture, right? So I think good people, man, just being around good people.
So as you look forward and beyond in your coaching career, what are your biggest goals professionally and personally going forward in basically this next chapter?
I mean, it's hard. It's, my biggest goal, I think my goal will remain the same. Like, I would love at the end of the day to be an NBA head coach. And I think everybody's path is different to get there. And it's taking calculated risks along the way, right? Knowing what the next step is and where it's going to lead is often tough to predict. And so I heard the CEO of Ralph Lauren say, like, really the way he chooses or tries to choose every step of his career, the next path is it going to challenge me to grow? And am I going to have that ability to be challenged to grow in this role? And is it going to put me in proximity to get to the next step that I'm trying to get to? So you can't just take a head coaching job, in Thailand because it's a head coaching job. Or I just use an example. Like, is this job going to put me in proximity where people are noticing that I'm doing a good job here and getting ready for the next step? And so, like, I think my goal at the end of the day, everything I do is to, like, hopefully get back and be closer to family and be around people you love. And I love coaching in Europe, and it's, if I can become the head coach of a EuroLeague team, sure, that's fantastic. That's like being a head coach of an NBA team.
Right.
But my goal at the end of the day, I would say, like, is to get back to the NBA and try and reconnect with the path that maybe I was on before I went to Europe, but I had to go to Europe to get back to this path. So, it's like I said, everybody's path is different, and I think you can't compare yourself to anybody else, and you can't look at anybody else's journey unless you're using it as like, oh, well, they did this, and maybe I can do the same thing. But I would say, yeah, at the end of the day, my goals haven't changed from when I was a little kid. Like, be at the highest level you possibly can in the NBA. Growing up watching Magic Johnson and the Lakers in the 80s and getting to work for, Mike Dunleavy, who was the coach of the Lakers when I was growing up.
Right.
And you get to just see all these things. And I'm fortunate to be where I've been. And so hopefully, take the right steps, and there's no missteps along the way. And you can keep growing and getting to where hopefully down the road I can get that opportunity.
So my last and final question, what advice would you give to aspiring coaches who want to break into the NBA or have a global coaching career like yours?
Say yes until you have to say no. That was advice that I got from one of the guys I worked for with the Clippers. He's now a coach in the University of Buffalo, Raman Spazzato. He just kept telling me, man, be open to every opportunity. Say yes. If the team tells you they want you to go out and scout a game and they can't pay you for it, go out and scout that game, man, and see who you meet along the way. But continue to say yes and continue to be available and continue to be open, because you never know what opportunity could lead to what down the road. I told you I listened to your podcast with Michael Arcieri, and we've had very similar situations. We're not the only ones where it feels like at some points you're hitting your head against the wall and you can get very discouraged. I've told you all these places I've been, but like hasn't been easy to get there, and there have been a lot of no's along the way. Just before I got on the phone with you, I got a no in a situation that would have been a great situation. So, there's a lot of no's along the way, and it's very easy to get discouraged and very easy to kind of switch your path up. And maybe I should be doing this, and maybe no one's going to believe in me. And I would just say, like, if it's really what you want to do, don't say no to any job because you never know what it could lead to. You never have any idea what it could lead to. I will tell you, we didn't even talk about it. The way I got in the NBA was being a summer league intern the second year of Las Vegas Summer League while I was still playing in college. And I really didn't want to do it. And I wanted to have fun with my friends in the summertime while I was still a player and in college. And I got pushed because of the AAU connections with David and Dana Pump, the Pump brothers, and my dad, who ran a scouting service back in the early 2000s called SoCal Hoops. And those two connections allowed me to get into the NBA Summer League as an intern. And, the guys I was interning with at that point were Nick Uren, who's the GM of the Phoenix Mercury, and Ben Tenzer, who's currently the interim GM with the Denver Nuggets, and Mike Tellum, whose father is Arn Tellum with used to be the biggest agent, now is with the Detroit Pistons. And Mike is a big-time agent with Excel. And Liron Fanon, who's the GM of the Cavs G League team. And, you just go down the list of these guys, and we were all interning together. And so you just never know. So I would just say yes as long as you can afford to say yes. And it's a long path. And the more you compare yourself to other people that have gotten lucky or have been in the right place at the right time before you, the more unhappy you're going to be and the more discouraged you're going to be. So, that would be my advice, man. Be available at all times. Be genuine. Be honest. And at some point, it will break for you. And just be hungry for the next step, but be happy with where you are at the time and be the best you can be in the position you are.
Well, thank you, Coach Gale, for this opportunity today. And just thank you so much for coming on the show today, sir.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you, man. I really appreciate it. And if I can ever be of any help to anybody, man, or if anyone can be of any help to me, shoot, we're all trying to get to that next step. So, I appreciate the opportunity from you as well. And, good luck with everything, man.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.